At the beach with my kids, I got a strange text. Leave quietly. Don't tell your children. I listened, and what I discovered was their horrifying plan, with police already on the way. Imagine enjoying a perfect summer day with your kids, when suddenly, your phone buzzes with a terrifying message. Leave quietly. Don't tell your children. Your life depends on it. That chilling text saved my life, because what I discovered next was a horrifying plot. My own children were planning to murder me for money. My name is Joan Morales, and at 78 years old, I never thought I'd live to tell a story like this. It was July 15th, 2023, a flawless Saturday on the sunny beaches of Chicago. 2 years had passed since I lost my dear Robert, my husband of 52 years, and frankly, I'd been adrift. But that day, my children, Sergio, 55, Christina, 52, and Raquel, 48, had insisted we spend it together as a family. And I was thrilled. So thrilled, in fact, that I almost missed the signs. Our relationships had grown distant since Robert's death. Sergio was always swamped with his business. Christina lived in her own world of luxury, and Raquel, the youngest, barely visited. But on that particular Saturday, they seemed different, more attentive, more loving, truly present. We were set up under a bright blue umbrella, the lake calm, seagulls circling, as I watched other families enjoy their day. My children chatted excitedly about their lives, their jobs, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was part of something again, a true family. Then my phone buzzed. It was 2:47 p.m., an unknown number. I usually ignore calls I don't recognize, but something, a primal instinct, made me look at the text message that had just arrived. It read, "Leave quietly. Don't say anything to your children." A chill, far colder than the lake breeze, ran through me. Who could send such a thing? And why specifically mention my children? I glanced at Sergio, Christina, and Raquel, still talking, still laughing, but their laughter now sounded strangely forced, hollow. My phone vibrated again. Another message from the same number. "It's urgent. Your life depends on it. I'm in the parking lot. Red car. Trust me." My heart hammered against my ribs. All my life, I've been a cautious woman, but I've also learned to trust my gut. And my gut was screaming that something was terribly, terribly wrong. "I feel a little dizzy," I lied, getting up slowly from the lounge chair. "I think it was too much sun. I'm going to take a short walk to cool off." Sergio immediately stood. "Do you want me to come with you, Mom?" No, I replied, forcing a smile I hoped looked natural. "I just need to walk a bit. I'll be right back." Christina looked at me with what seemed like genuine concern. "Be careful, Mom. Don't go too far." The irony was sickening. I walked towards the parking lot, trying to keep my steps casual, but my mind was racing. Who knew I was here? Who knew my children well enough to send such a specific, urgent warning? Then I saw her. A woman, about 35, with brown hair tied back in a ponytail, waiting next to a red Ford Focus. Her eyes held a mix of nervousness and fierce determination that I recognized instantly. "Nora," I whispered in disbelief. "Nora Jimenez, Sergio's housekeeper. She'd worked for him for 8 years. I knew her well, a responsible, discreet woman, a single mother to an 8-year-old girl named Valerie. She'd always shown me respect, and in return, I'd made sure Sergio treated her well and paid her fairly. "Mrs. Morales," she said, her voice trembling. "Thank you for coming. I know this must seem very strange, but I need you to listen carefully. Your life is in danger." The world seemed to stop around me. The playful shouts of children on the beach, the rhythmic crash of waves, the murmur of distant conversations, everything faded as I processed her words. "What are you talking about, Nora?" She glanced nervously towards the beach where my children were undoubtedly wondering why I was taking so long. "We can't talk here. Get in the car, please. I have something to show you." My gut instinct, the one that had just saved me, screamed to trust her. For 8 years, Nora had proven to be honest and loyal. If she was risking so much to warn me, it had to be dire. I got into the passenger seat, and she started the car immediately. "Mrs. Morales," she began, driving towards a quieter industrial area. "What I'm about to tell you will be very hard to believe, but your children are planning to hurt you." Nora's words echoed in my head like an apocalyptic siren. My children planning to hurt me? It was impossible, unthinkable, but the sheer seriousness in her face forced me to listen. She stopped the car in a secluded spot, away from prying eyes. With trembling hands, she pulled out her cell phone. Mrs. Morales, I've worked at Sergio's house since 2015. Yesterday, while cleaning his office, I found some papers that made me suspicious. But what I discovered later. Her voice broke. I took pictures as proof. She swiped the screen and showed me the first image. It was a bank document with my signature, but I didn't remember ever signing it. Do you recognize this signature, Mrs. Morales? I examined the screen closely. It was undeniably my handwriting, my characteristic signature. But something deeply disturbed me. The date was July 8th, just a week ago. Yes, it's my signature, but I tried to remember. Wait, that was the day of the barbecue at Sergio's house. They asked me to sign several papers, said they were routine forms for the family's health insurance. Nora nodded gravely. That's what I thought, but look at the document you actually signed. She zoomed in on the image. My eyes widened in horror. It wasn't for health insurance. It was a bank transfer authorization for $950,000. My entire fortune, the savings of a lifetime of honest work. This can't be real, I murmured, feeling the blood run cold in my veins. There's more, Nora continued, showing me another picture. This time, a power of attorney document, giving Sergio absolute control over all my assets. And the third image, it left me breathless. It was a draft of a will, clearly forged, where I left my entire estate to my 3 children, eliminating any charitable donations I'd planned for my church. But how is this possible? I was conscious when I signed. I remember that day perfectly. Nora looked at me with a mix of compassion and urgency. Mrs. Morales, do you remember feeling strange after you ate? Dizziness, confusion, drowsiness? A shiver ran down my spine. Indeed, I remembered feeling unusually tired that afternoon. I'd blamed my discomfort on the heat and my age, or maybe the wine. I found this in Sergio's kitchen, she said, showing me another photo. A small bottle with a medical label, Brotsipum, 6 milligrams. There were also traces of a colorless liquid I didn't recognize. My mind worked feverishly, connecting the dots. The insistent family lunch, my strange drowsiness, the documents I signed without reading completely because I trusted my family. They drugged me. I whispered, more to myself than to her. I think so, yes. But the worst is yet to come. Nora took a deep, shaky breath. Last night, while clearing plates after dinner, I overheard a phone conversation Sergio was having. He was talking to someone about a very large debt, Mrs. Morales. He mentioned the amount of $380,000. The figure hit me like a punch. It was a fortune none of my children could gather with their regular incomes. Sergio sounded desperate. He was telling the person on the phone that the old problem would be solved soon, that he had access to the necessary funds. When he mentioned your name, Mrs. Morales, I knew I had to warn you. Who do they owe so much money to? I'm not entirely sure, but I heard names that scared me. People from the south side of Chicago involved in illegal loans. Sergio repeated the name Miguel the Blade several times. I knew that reputation. Chicago had its dangerous areas, and ruthless loan sharks were a reality I preferred to ignore. But now, that reality had reached my own family. But if they already have access to my money with those forged documents, why do they need? Nora interrupted me, her expression grave. Because there's a problem, Mrs. Morales. Banks are being more cautious with large transfers from seniors. They need you to be present, conscious, and personally ratify any transactions over $100,000. Then, the full extent of the danger hit me. It wasn't enough to have drugged me once for my signature. They needed to keep me under control, manipulable, perhaps permanently unable to make independent decisions. There's something else you should know, Nora added in a barely audible voice. This morning, before they left for the beach, I heard Christina on the phone with someone. She mentioned something about a plan B in case you became a problem. Plan B. I couldn't hear everything clearly, but she mentioned words like accident, at home, and quick inheritance. The horror of the situation crashed down on me with full force. My own children, my own flesh and blood, weren't just planning to rob me. They were willing to get rid of me if necessary. That's why I sent you the message, Mrs. Morales. Last night, I called the police and explained everything. They're investigating, but they need more evidence. Earlier today, they told me they would come to search your house this afternoon. The police are involved? Yes. Inspector Thomas Grant is in charge of the case. He was the one who suggested I warn you discreetly when you went out together today. The police are already on their way to your house to execute a search warrant. My mind tried to process this overwhelming information. In less than an hour, I had gone from enjoying a family day at the beach to discovering that my children were planning to drug me, rob me, and possibly kill me. What do we do now, Nora? We have to go directly to the police station. Inspector Grant wants to take your statement and do a blood test, too. See if there are still traces of the drugs they gave you last week. I felt a mix of overwhelming gratitude and primal terror. Gratitude for this brave woman who had risked everything to save me, and terror for the inconceivable betrayal of my own children. Thank you, Nora. I don't know how I can ever repay you for what you've done for me. She looked at me with quiet determination. You always treated me with respect and dignity, Mrs. Morales. I could never let them hurt you. As we headed to the police station, a terrible question hammered in my mind. How had my family reached this point of desperation? And above all, what else were they willing to do to get my money? The drive to the police department took only 15 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. Nora drove with obvious nervousness, constantly checking the rearview mirrors while I tried to grasp the true scale of the conspiracy against me. Mrs. Morales, she said, breaking the tense silence. There are more details you need to know before you talk to Inspector Grant. What I discovered is much more complex than I initially imagined. She pulled over on a side street near the station and turned to me with a worried expression. Last night, after overhearing Sergio's phone call, I decided to investigate further. I waited until everyone was asleep and searched his office thoroughly. I found a hidden folder behind some books. She took out her phone again and showed me pictures of documents that made my blood run cold. They were receipts for extravagant purchases, a brand new Mercedes-Benz for $95,000 in Sergio's name, luxury jewelry for Christina worth $45,000, and a condo on the coast Raquel had recently bought for $180,000. None of your children have enough income to afford this, Nora explained. Sergio makes about $3,500 a month at his consulting job. Christina gets around $2,800 as an administrator, and Raquel barely makes $2,200 at her part-time job. It's impossible for them to afford such a lifestyle. The math was crushing. Between the three of them, they didn't make more than $9,000 a month. Not nearly enough to maintain the luxuries they had clearly been enjoying. So, how did they finance all of this? That's the scariest part, Mrs. Morales. I found private loan contracts signed with illegal lenders. The terms are brutal. 15% monthly interest, personal guarantees that include physical threats, and impossible repayment deadlines. She showed me photocopies of those contracts. The creditors' names were unfamiliar, but the amounts were astronomical. Sergio owed $150,000, Christina $120,000, and Raquel $110,000. INTOTAL, asterisk operator 110,000, in total, asterisk operator 30,000, in debt to people who, according to the contract clauses, would not hesitate to use violent methods to collect their money. And this Miguel, the Blade guy, from what I could discreetly find out, is the leader of an organization dedicated to loan sharking in the rougher neighborhoods of Chicago. He has a criminal record for extortion, serious threats, and assault. His collection methods are known for their brutality. A chill ran down my spine. My children had not only fallen into the clutches of ruthless lenders, but they had chosen one of the most dangerous in the region. When were these loans due? Nora checked her photos. The final deadline was July 20th, 2023. That's in 5 days. If they didn't pay in full, the consequences would be severe. Now, I understood the sheer desperation that had driven their plan. They had no alternative. Either they got my money immediately, or they would face retaliation that could include physical violence, damage to their property, or worse. By the way, if you're still with me, still reeling from this unbelievable betrayal, make sure to hit that subscribe button. More unbelievable stories are coming. You won't want to miss them. But there's something more disturbing I found, Nora continued in a trembling voice. A recorded conversation on Sergio's phone that he apparently forgot to delete. She played a low-quality audio, but it was clear enough to understand the dialogue. It was Sergio's voice talking to a man with a thick Chicago accent. Miguel, I need more time. The old lady is more suspicious than we thought. There's no more time, Sergio. You know the rules. $380,000 by Thursday. Or we start with the corrections. I have a plan. My mother has almost $1 million saved up. I just need her to be cooperative. And if she doesn't cooperate? There was a long pause before Sergio responded with a coldness that shattered my heart. Then we'll have to speed up her departure. A household accident, something natural for a woman her age. The inheritance would be processed in weeks. Tears started streaming from my eyes. Hearing my own son plan my death with such coldness was more painful than any financial betrayal. When did you record this? The night before last. Sergio was talking in the garden, thinking no one was listening, but he left his bedroom window open and his phone was connected to an automatic recorder he uses for his work meetings. Are the others in on the plan? Completely. I found WhatsApp messages between the 3 siblings coordinating the details. Christina had researched medications that could simulate a natural heart attack. Raquel had discreetly consulted with a funeral home about rapid cremation procedures. The scale of their conspiracy overwhelmed me. It wasn't an impulsive decision driven by financial desperation. It was a meticulously crafted plan where each sibling had specific responsibilities to ensure my elimination and immediate access to my inheritance. What kind of drugs did they use on me last week? According to what I found, a combination of bromazepam, a powerful anti-anxiety drug, mixed with a liquid derivative known as citrulline. This second substance causes temporary confusion, short-term memory loss, and an excessive sense of trust that makes victims sign documents without questioning them. Where did they get those substances? Christina works at a pharmaceutical company. She has access to controlled medications and knows their effects. Apparently, she had been preparing this mixture for weeks. The puzzle pieces were falling into place, forming a horrifying picture. It wasn't a coincidence they invited me to that family lunch, nor that they insisted so much that I try the special wine they had bought for the occasion. Everything had been calculated to temporarily incapacitate me and get my signature on documents I didn't remember reading completely. Nora, why did you decide to risk so much to help me? You could have just quit and found another job. She looked at me with a mix of determination and emotion. Mrs. Morales, you were the only person who treated me with dignity when I needed it most. When Valerie was born and I became a single mother, you made sure Sergio gave me paid maternity leave. When my daughter was sick last year, you personally paid the medical bills without me asking. Her words moved me deeply. Besides, she continued, if I allowed them to hurt a person as good as you, what kind of example would I be for my daughter? Some principles are worth more than any job. As we finally headed towards the entrance of the police station, a terrible certainty settled in my mind. The family I had loved and protected for decades was willing to murder me for money. And if I didn't act immediately, in 5 days, I could be dead. While we waited in the station's lobby for Inspector Grant, my mind began a painful journey into the past. Nora's revelations had opened a deep wound, but they also forced me to re-examine the last 2 years of my life with devastating clarity. It all started on September 23, 2021. Robert, my husband of 52 years, passed away after a 6-month battle with pancreatic cancer. I vividly remembered how my children behaved during those final days. Attentive, loving, seemingly devastated by the impending loss of their father. But now, with this new perspective, certain details I had interpreted as filial love took on a sinister meaning. During Robert's last weeks, Sergio had repeatedly insisted on knowing the family's financial details. He said it was important to be prepared to help me with the paperwork after the funeral. Christina was the one who asked the most about my savings and retirement plans. Mom, we want to make sure you have everything you need, she repeated constantly. At the time, I took their insistence as genuine concern for my future well-being. Raquel, the youngest, had been more subtle. She offered to accompany me to doctor's appointments and bank meetings, always with the excuse of supporting Mom in these difficult times. I never suspected she was memorizing information about my accounts and investments. The first few months after the funeral were the darkest of my existence. The house felt empty, silent, filled with memories that choked me. Robert had been my anchor, my reason for getting up every morning. Without him, I sank into a deep depression that almost consumed me. That's when I found refuge in faith. St. Michael's Parish became my sanctuary. Father Anthony, a wise man of 65, welcomed me with understanding and patience. I started by attending Sunday Mass, then weekday services, and eventually became a daily parishioner, bigger than my own suffering. The church gave me structure when my life lacked purpose and community when loneliness threatened to destroy me. During this period of spiritual renewal, my children intensified their visits. At first, I was thrilled, thinking we had finally developed the family bonds Robert had always wanted. Sergio came on Tuesday afternoons, Christina on Thursdays, and Raquel on Saturdays. It seemed like a perfect routine of family support, but now, remembering those visits with a new perspective, I recognized disturbing patterns. They always asked about my health in a specific way. Was I taking any medication? Was I having trouble remembering things? Had I considered setting up a power of attorney for medical emergencies? The questions about money were constant, but disguised as concern. Mom, have you thought about consolidating your savings into a single account to simplify management? Wouldn't it be more convenient to have online access to your funds? Have you updated your will since Dad passed away? Sergio had been particularly insistent on this last point. In January of 2022, just 4 months after the funeral, he pressured me to visit the lawyer as a precaution. At the time, I gave in because it seemed like a sensible suggestion from a responsible son. I vividly remembered that visit to the lawyer's office. Sergio accompanied me and stayed present throughout the entire consultation. The lawyer, Mr. Garcia, had prepared several documents that, according to Sergio, would modernize my will and protect my assets. I signed everything confidently, believing I was securing my children's future. But now I wondered what additional documents they might have slipped in among those papers. Had I signed powers of attorney without realizing it? Bank authorizations hidden among legitimate will clauses? Christina had adopted a different but equally effective strategy. She presented herself as the unofficial family administrator, offering to handle my monthly bills and paperwork. Mom, let me help you with these boring things. You focus on recovering emotionally. Gradually, she had taken control over various aspects of my daily financial life. She paid my utility bills, handled bank correspondence, and took care of renewing insurance and subscriptions. In retrospect, this had given her complete access to information about my financial resources. Raquel had chosen the most subtle and manipulative approach. She focused on my emotional state, presenting herself as the understanding daughter who best understood my pain. Mom, you know you can trust me with any concern. The older ones sometimes don't understand, but I'll always be here for you. Her visits included long conversations about Robert, shared memories, and plans to honor his legacy. During these intimate chats, Raquel extracted information about my charitable intentions, my desire to donate to the parish, and my plans for the future. Now, I understood that each child had developed a specialty within their conspiracy. Sergio handled the legal and notary aspects. Christina controlled the day-to-day financial administration, and Raquel manipulated my emotional state to keep me vulnerable and trusting. The most significant change had occurred in the last 6 months. Their visits became more frequent, but also more tense. I noticed exchanges of glances between them, conversations that stopped abruptly when I entered the room, and a level of stress I didn't know how to interpret. In June of 2023, Sergio had suggested those regular family gatherings at his house. Mom, now that you're doing better emotionally, we should spend more time together as a family. Dad would have wanted to see us united. Those Sunday lunches at Sergio's house became weekly events that I looked forward to with genuine joy. Finally, we seemed to have found the family harmony Robert had dreamed of. But evidently, for my children, those gatherings had a completely different purpose: to study my routines, assess my mental state, and prepare the ground for their final plan. The lunch on July 8th, when they drugged me to get my signature, had simply been the culmination of months of meticulous preparation. It wasn't an impulsive act of desperation, but the result of a carefully planned strategy to access my assets. As I sat in that waiting room, surrounded by posters about public safety and crime prevention, a bitter realization settled in my conscience. For 2 years, I had mistaken calculated manipulation for filial love. My emotional vulnerability after Robert's death had turned them into predators, not comforters. The faith that had helped me heal so much now faced its most difficult test. How could I reconcile Christian teachings about forgiveness and family love with the brutal reality that my own children were willing to murder me for money? Joe Morales, please come in. The voice of Inspector Thomas Grant echoed in the waiting room with professional authority. He was a man of about 50, medium height, sturdy build, and a piercing gaze that inspired immediate confidence. His impeccable uniform and serious demeanor calmed me in the midst of the emotional storm I was going through. Good morning, Inspector. This is Nora Jimenez, the one who alerted me to the situation, I said as we headed to his office. Miss Jimenez, your call last night was very timely. We've been working intensely since then to verify the information you provided. The inspector replied, inviting us to sit in front of his desk, which was cluttered with files and documents. Joan, before we proceed with your formal statement, we need to run some urgent medical tests. Our forensic team requires blood and hair samples to detect any possible residues of substances that may have been administered without your consent. Is it still possible to detect anything after a week? I asked with concern. Depending on the substances used, yes. Broadsipum can remain detectable in blood for 3 to 7 days, and certain metabolites persist in hair for up to 3 months. If they really gave you the combination Miss Jimenez describes, we'll find evidence. A forensic technician entered carrying a professional medical case. The procedure was quick but thorough: blood draw, hair samples, and a basic physical exam to assess my overall health. During the process, the inspector continued to explain the legal steps that would follow based on the photographic evidence Miss Jimenez provided. We obtained a court order to tap your children's communications and search their homes. The operation began 2 hours ago. They're already at my house. Indeed. A specialized team is executing simultaneous searches at the residences of Sergio, Christina, and Raquel. We've also requested that the bank freeze all their accounts to prevent unauthorized transfers while the investigation is ongoing. The police efficiency pleasantly surprised me. In less than 24 hours since Nora's call, they had organized a complex operation that protected my interests and sought additional evidence against my children. Inspector, what will happen when my children get back from the beach and discover the search? We've coordinated the operation to coincide with their absence. Our agents have orders to complete the search before they return. However, we need your cooperation for a crucial phase of the plan. Grant leaned forward, adopting a more confidential posture. Joan, we want to organize a controlled operation that will allow us to obtain direct confessions from your children. The documentary evidence is strong, but recorded testimonies would considerably strengthen the case. The proposal terrified me. Voluntarily returning to the place where my own children had planned to drug me again, knowing they were desperate and that their deadlines were days away, seemed extremely dangerous. Are there no less risky alternatives?